Hello, and thank you for being with us today. This is Ken Carpenter with the Local Business Alliance, and today I'm joined with Cory O'Daniel of Massdriver. So, Cory, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I've been trying to do a crash course in I probably won't even say it right, Kubernetes.
Okay,
And
yeah, that's the entire industry's trying to do a crash course in it.
cloud containers, and just wanted to get your insight. It looks like Massdriver's getting close to launching. Would it be a beta product?
Yeah, we're going to be doing our public beta in Q1. We currently have a pretty large wait list waiting to get in. We're just working through a few more features with some of our design partners, but yeah, I think we're targeting probably maybe mid-February at the latest.
Okay, so help me. Like if I was a CEO looking at making a purchase, can you explain to me in layman's terms what it actually does? Like, does it simplify a process? Does it solve a problem? Does it replace another product?
Yeah, so I mean, it definitely replaces a process, and that is managing cloud infrastructure. Today, most of that's done through the AWS dashboard or through writing code. And the problem with that most CEOs and CTOs experience is hiring DevOps right now is really hard. There's 40% more jobs than there are people that do the job. And that puts their engineering teams in a really tough place. You have to redirect people that are working on your platform to figuring out how to build stuff in the cloud so that they can work on the software they're trying to sell. And that's what Massdriver does, is we make that super simple for anybody in the engineering space to deploy high scale, resilient cloud infrastructure with security built in by default. So if you stay up at night worrying about operations today, whether you're a director of engineering, a lead software engineer, or the CTO, Massdriver is the tool that you're looking for to alleviate some of that stress and know that you're getting best practice cloud infrastructure secure by default.
Okay, I'm still trying to process what you're saying. So you forgive me, I'm a little bit slow. So let's say if I'm trying to put this all together. So let's say if I had just created a company that wanted to go in and be like a competitor to Asana or Monday or Trello, and I wanted to just deploy this whole thing, not purchase any infrastructure, just put this in the cloud somewhere. My thought would be, look, I'm going to go to AWS or Google Cloud Platform, and that's all I have to do. It sounds like what you're saying is it's not that easy.
It's not, yeah. So I mean, that's the feeling that the cloud gives you. It's easy. You go write your software, you bring it to AWS, GCP, Azure, and get going. But the reality is there's a lot of high-paid plumbers that have to connect a lot of stuff to make your actual application run, right? So even in serverless, right? Like serverless is the thing that's supposed to make this all easier. Like serverless still requires a lot of operational configuration, whether it's observability, knowing what's going on, or just tying all the different serverless pieces together to make it all work, right? And that's the thing that engineers that haven't worked in AWS or GCP or Azure that's the difficulty they're not expecting. They get there and they're like, oh, I've got my software written. How do I deploy it now? Like, how do I configure security? Like, do I know that my policies are secure? And the answer a lot of times is no. And where companies end up with deadlines, right, is let's get it working, right? And let's get it working, let's ship features. So maybe you cut corners designing your infrastructure. Maybe you cut corners designing your security layer. Maybe you cut corners in your observability. And now you either be one of these companies that have a security flaw that pops up, right, in a few months, or maybe your costs go out of control because you've configured something incorrectly, or maybe you're flying blind because you haven't properly configured observability. You don't know what your application is actually doing it as people are using it. And those are the things that you have to do, like the pre-work, the negative engineering that you have to do to go do this interesting ROI generating platform work that you're trying to sell if you're making an Asana or a Monday competitor.
Okay, gotcha. So what does Massdriver sit on top of? Is it a product that gets installed in AWS, or does it have to sit on top of Kubernetes, or how does it fit in?
So we're actually cloud agnostic. So whatever cloud you want to use, Massdriver works on top of it. And the goal is that we create these high level abstractions that focus on your intentions. Like, you know what you want. I want a serverless REST application, or I want to do change data capture, or I want an ETL pipeline. Like, you know what you want as a software engineer, but you might not know how to build it. And so Massdriver is very high level building blocks with the ability to extend in the future. That work on any cloud. So if you are using AWS because they've given you $25,000 of credits, that's great. You can be on AWS. You use Massdriver as your interface for configuring AWS. If you decide you want to move to GCP because you've gotten a better offer on pricing, Massdriver can migrate all of your infrastructure from AWS to GCP. Or as Massdriver, we run on Massdriver today. We actually dual home our entire application. So when the US East outage happened recently, our software just cut everything over to GCP. A few weeks previous, GCP had an outage, it cut everything over to AWS. So like, that's completely seamless to us. I don't get woken up in the middle of the night, it just continues to work. And for a company that has maybe 2 or 3 software engineers, that's a startup, or somebody that's large, maybe you're moving from on-prem to the cloud, right? Like, that is a big shift for on-prem network engineers. Some of them don't know how to write software. Some of them aren't familiar with cloud APIs, and some of them don't know how to write infrastructure as code, right? And so that is not only a big shift for the business, it's a big shift for that the skill set of those engineers moving from on-prem to the cloud, right? And so if we can give people a way to deploy these high-level concepts easily and then guarantee them the resiliency of staying up when the cloud goes down, I think that's going to be a big benefit to customers small and large.
So did you sort of get into this by being like an expert on AWS or Google Cloud Platform? Is that where you started?
Yeah, so the entire founding team today, it's 3 founders. All 3 of us are operations engineers that have 15 years of experience working in the cloud. So I began working in AWS EC2 pretty much when it was originally launched to the public. We had a big data center in El Segundo. It was launched and we wanted to get out of the data center. It was expensive. We were looking at other data centers and we just started cutting over services to EC2. And so I've worked in the cloud a lot since then, doing some pretty large scale migrations of companies. And what I see is, like, from the startups I've worked at to some of these companies that are, 47 data centers around the globe, the infrastructure is very similar, right? It's commodity. I mean, that's why the cloud exists. The cloud could not exist if the thing that we use it for wasn't commodity, right? But what happens is a lot of engineers are figuring out something for the first time on the cloud. And so they implement commodity in a bespoke way, right? And so it feels like IP to them, but it's not. It's just compute, right? It's another managed database. And so what we see is, 45 years of experience across the 3 of us, we've seen these similar architectures appear over and over again, from 1-person startups to 1,000 engineer, like, mega corporations. And so that's what we're trying to do, is like build this 80% use case of, like, this is probably what you need, and you shouldn't even be thinking about how it works. Like, you know that you need it, just deploy it. And when you need to change it in the future, like, we support that, right? We can grow with you as your use case evolves.
Okay, so you're going to have like, besides the software, you're going to have like implementation services or support services that'll sort of stand in back of it and answer questions?
Exactly. We do something called fractional DevOps as well. So it's a support offering that we have. So we have the base platform, which you can get in and start configuring stuff yourselves. We have 8 to 5 support that's free. And then we do something called fractional ops, which is if you have very specific use cases that you need to build out, like, we're available to help you with that. But what we also do is we have a network effect, right? So if we build something for somebody once, they have the option of publishing it to the platform as a public module that everybody else can use, right? So an example is, one of the things we did very early on was implement secure, best practice, expandable VPCs, which is not what the cloud gives you by default. If you use AWS's default VPC, AWS's security tool flags it as a security issue. That's what they give you by default,
Okay.
right? And so, yeah, I mean, it's just like, because they're trying to give something that works for everybody, right? Like, they're not necessarily concerned with giving you the thing that's best for you. They want it to work for everybody, and they'll charge you in the future if you need to fix that, right? Like, they're happy to. And so one of the things we did early on is develop this VPC that works very well across clouds, peer to cross clouds, But one of the things we're missing is VPN. We're like, yeah, most people don't need VPN. We're not going to build it. One of our early customers needed a VPN. We designed it for them, and they're like, yeah, we're happy to let you publish this to the network so everybody else has access to deploying VPN. So now it's just a feature that's in the site. If you want a VPN, you just drag it onto your VPC and you've got it, right? And so it's really one of the powerful things about the way that we're going about this is, as we do this fractional work for some companies, they have the option of sharing it back. They can even brand it almost as a collaborator on the module, and then other people have the ability to deploy similar architectures.
Interesting. So how do you go about selling this type of product? I mean, it sounds like you've already got people waiting in line. How do you promote it or get the word out?
That's something we're working on. We're a startup, but we've been around for 3 months now, so we're going. So most of our early customers today are people that have reached out to us because we've done these cloud migrations before, and they've gotten in a place that they're stuck, or they're trying to move to another cloud, and they're like, hey, can you move us? Right? This project was in stealth mode. They didn't know it existed, and we're like, we can move you, and this is the rate we charge you for moving you, or you can start using our platform at a fraction of the cost of like what it would cost for us to go do this work, right? And people are excited about that. I mean, moving to the cloud today is a very expensive cost that takes a long time. Like moving from on-prem to GCP or AWS takes months of prep work, figuring out what you have and what data center, what your CIDR ranges are, what types of machines you have, what your compute requirements are. It's a lot of like paper pushing and sending Excel spreadsheets around trying to figure out what you have before you can even start building stuff in GCP. And with Massdriver, somebody that owns a data center can sit down and just start drawing what their infrastructure looks like. It's actually provisioning in the cloud, and their engineers can start using it today and be like, this isn't right. We need more compute. We need a security protocol here, right? So it lets people start trying the cloud today rather than 3 to 6 months from now. So that's been really compelling. But now we've got to expand that, and that's one of the things I'm working on as a new CEO is like, how do we expand that sales pitch to the masses? So it'll be an exciting next 2 months for me.
Interesting. Yeah. So are there other modular like cybersecurity features within the platform that can be sort of dragged on to a configuration? Yeah.
So right now, as far as like base level security, there's something in the industry called principle of least privilege, and we actually build that into everything that we do. We call it, just for a mouthful, we call it progressive. It's so hard to even say it, progressive principle of least privilege. We think it's funny, but essentially what it does is like, as you're designing stuff on the diagram, we know the full context of what you're doing now, right? Which is you don't have when you're doing stuff in an AWS console and you're making one thing at a time, but we can actually see how everything's connected. And so what we're actually able to do is dynamically generate your IAM policies across your entire graph of services to make sure that it's just enough policy to do what you're trying to do and nothing more, right? So we provide this nice, like deep base level security that you don't get when you're just using AWS or Terraform. On top of that, we're starting to partner with companies to allow them to design and sell modules through our platform. So if you're a security company today and you want to onboard with a new client and you got to go do all this work to figure out what they have, et cetera, what we're picturing in the future with Massdriver is you'll be able to design one of these modules. You'll be able to sell it through the platform. Somebody can just drag it into their infrastructure, and then you have access to running your security tools within their infrastructure. Trust brokering, IAM role trust brokering is handled by us. Again, principle of least privilege is handled by us. So you as a security tool manufacturer, you don't even have to think about that stuff. You just have to build your tool and know how to analyze the infrastructure for security vulnerabilities. And Massdriver takes care of all the permissions, provisioning, et cetera, for you. So we think it's going to be really interesting as a two-sided marketplace for a lot of companies that have to do, again, they're still doing this negative engineering work, a lot of work to get their security tool to be able to deploy securely in other people's environments. And if we can take care of that for them, they can just focus on building really great security tools.
Interesting. So what would you say going into 2022, your biggest challenge that you're looking at as far as moving the business forward would be?
The biggest for me, I guess there's two fronts. Like I said, we're a pretty young startup right now. We're fully bootstrapped. Up until about a week ago, we've started doing an angel round. My biggest goal in the next 2 months is to start our actual fundraise. So it's something I've never done before, so it's going to be quite a challenge. For the team that's continuing to work on software, as I'm losing a lot of my time to that, I think their biggest challenges are, honestly, it's just user interface and UX, right? We've got a ton of operational experience on the team, but to date, we don't have any front-end developers. So we've all kind of dug in deep, read a lot of books, and have been trying to build front ends. And the site's usable today. It looks nice, but we know that there could be a much nicer user experience and make it easier to use, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to sell here, is a platform that's really easy to design complex cloud infrastructures. And you can build complex cloud infrastructures with it today, but we do need to do a bit more work to make the site the simple experience that we're looking to give people. And so that's what we're working through right now from the engineering front, is staffing out that side of the team, bringing people on that can kind of help with making it an easier product to use.
Okay. So are you at the point right now where you have like a minimum viable product, or are you still in development stage for that?
No, we got it. We have an MVP. We've got four organizations using it today. We call them design partners using it today, and we're going to be open. That's the list that we're planning to open up to. The 60-person list we were planning to open up to in February. So I'm just doing some last minute functionality and features in there around observability to tighten that up, and alerting to let people know if there's any sort of cloud outages like the US East one last week. And yeah, once that's kind of buttoned up, we plan to open it up to our wait list, and then we'll probably be opening up to the public just after Q1.
Cool. Wow. Well, that's great. We're definitely going to have all your links and all. I think there's a YouTube video and some other information that I found on your website. So I'll post that below this video. And yeah, I think we're right at the time where, LinkedIn sort of cuts us off at a certain time. So, but anyway, really appreciate your time, Cory. And, thanks for meeting with me for the Local Business Alliance.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.